As we get into this, we need to look at the human body as a quantum computer. You get the microtubules sending signals to your heart, which when your heart, it puts out a wave. Those signals are on that wave. Okay? And you have the word, all that stuff. This is from the 50s. It is actually very well made, or they worded it very well. So it's not all Coptic, it's not all, and it's very self-explanatory, but he puts a lot of emphasis on why you got to have happy thoughts and blah, blah, blah. But take in consideration that it's possible that you are a quantum computer. And if we take that into just be a possibility, is it, isn't it? I don't know. But that would make a lot of this stuff, this would be how to work this if it's a quantum sensor or a quantum computer. And I have 3 more coming that are not this but different. I think you'll like them. All right.
Imagine trying to sit in a chair, right, and just think about absolutely nothing for 10 minutes.
10 whole minutes, yeah.
And I don't mean just feeling relaxed or, zoning out while a song plays in your head.
Right.
I mean a total, absolute vacuum of thought. No mental images, no inner monologue, no, suddenly remembering you need to buy oat milk.
Which is always when you remember it.
Exactly. And if a single fleeting thought crosses your mind, even for a fraction of a second, you fail.
You're done.
Yeah, you move a bead on a string and you start completely over. Now imagine that mastering this seemingly impossible feat of psychological endurance is just the baseline prerequisite.
The bare minimum.
Right, it is the absolute bare minimum requirement before you are even allowed to attempt literal world-bending magic.
It is a terrifying proposition for most people, honestly. We are so accustomed to the constant rushing noise of our own minds that the idea of forcibly silencing it feels, almost violent.
It really does.
But in the framework we are exploring today, that silence is the only foundation upon which true power can actually be built.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, for you, the learner listening right now, we are embarking on this massive, deeply fascinating journey into the architecture of the human soul.
It's a big one.
Huge. We are taking a magnifying glass to a text that is legendary, incredibly dense, and frankly, often completely misunderstood by casual readers. We are unpacking Franz Barden's classic 1956 manual, Initiation into Hermetics.
It's a text that has fascinated and challenged and, utterly frustrated seekers for decades.
Oh, I bet.
And rightfully so, because Barden, he does not hold the reader's hand. He demands an ascetic level of discipline.
He really does.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to decode this historical manual of magical theory and extract the most practical, actionable nuggets of knowledge for your everyday physical and mental health.
Yes.
And we need to set the ground rules immediately, right? We're stripping away every single Hollywood misconception of what magic means.
No wands.
No wands. We are not casting spells to turn enemies into frogs. We are definitely not pulling rabbits out of hats.
What Barden defines as magic has absolutely nothing in common with sorcery or illusion.
Right.
He categorizes it as a sacred science. It is a rigorous system based on immutable universal rules. He basically presents it as the ultimate physics of the soul.
The physics of the soul. I love that.
Yeah, for Barden, true magic is about recognizing the fundamental laws of creation and learning to consciously and precisely operate within them.
Okay, let's unpack this, because what I find so incredibly cool about Barden's approach is that he treats the mind, the soul, and the body like a programmable mechanism.
He really does.
It is an extreme step-by-step system of self-improvement, mindfulness, and bodily control. It requires a level of discipline that makes a modern military boot camp look like a luxury spa weekend.
It's intense, and he makes his stance clear in the very first pages. Anyone approaching this text looking for, a shortcut to wealth or easy influence over others or a way to crush their enemies,
The usual stuff people want magic for.
Exactly. They will find themselves hitting a brick wall. Barden explicitly despises charlatans.
Yeah, he has no patience for it.
None. For him, the true magician is the highest initiate, a master who works in perfect, harmonious accordance with the macrocosm, meaning the universe, and the microcosm, meaning the human being.
Right, so to understand how to operate this programmable machine that is the human being, we really have to start with the blueprint.
The foundation.
Yeah, we need to look at the foundational code of reality. Barden builds his entire system on the concept of the elements. But we aren't talking about the periodic table here.
No hydrogen or carbon.
Right. We are talking about the classical esoteric elements: fire, water, air, and earth. And sitting above all of them, directing them, is the fifth principle, the akasa, or ether.
The way Barden structures the universe is, well, it's incredibly elegant. He posits that absolutely everything created, from the most massive swirling galaxy down to the smallest grain of sand on a beach, is achieved by the interaction and effect of these fundamental elements. It's all just elements.
Everything. But they don't just exist randomly. They were born from the akasa. The etheric principle is the causal sphere.
Okay.
It is spaceless. It is timeless. It is the uncreated original power, what various world religions might simply call God or the prime mover. From this infinite akasa, the elements are literally born into manifestation.
And to explain how these elements manifest, he links them to a very specific ancient conceptual framework, which is the tetragrammaton, the quabalistical Yadhivahe.
Yes.
But here is where I feel like he loses a lot of casual readers. He drops this term, and if you don't have a background in ancient mysticism, it just sounds like a magic word you're supposed to whisper in the dark.
It does. And it is entirely misunderstood by those looking for quick spells. To grasp Barden, we have to demystify Yod-He-Vah-He.
Please do. Think of it not as a word, but as a primordial chemical formula, a structural diagram of how energy moves from the divine into the physical. Let's break down the etymology and the logic of those four letters, because they map perfectly to Barden's elements, and honestly, they form the foundation for every physical exercise in the book.
Okay, let's do it.
So the first letter is Yud. This represents the initial spark of creation. It corresponds to the fire element.
Fire.
Fire is the first element born from the akasa. Its fundamental qualities are heat and expansion. It is the active, constructive, electrical fluid of the universe. In Barden's visualizations, it is always represented by the color red, and it is the raw, driving force of all things.
But a spark can't just expand forever, right? Or it would just dissipate into nothingness, or, I don't know, burn the universe down. It needs a container. It needs an opposite.
Exactly. Which brings us to the second letter, He. This represents the cup, the receptacle. It corresponds to the water element. If fire's expansion, water is shrinkage and coldness. It is passive, contractive, and produces what Barden calls the magnetic fluid. He visualizes it as blue. Fire and water are the fundamental binary of existence.
Like a battery.
Exactly like a battery. You cannot have the active, fiery principle existing in a stable universe without its exact opposite pole, water, to contain and limit it.
So we have the ultimate positive charge and the ultimate negative charge. But if you just smash extreme fire and extreme water together, they just destroy each other, right? You get steam, and then you get nothing.
That is where the third letter, Vau, enters the formula. Vau is the air element. Air is not a standalone force in the same way fire and water are. It is the mediator.
The mediator, right.
It is the neutral element that keeps the two opposing forces from obliterating one another. It borrows the quality of warmth from fire, and it borrows the quality of humidity from water. By balancing these borrowed traits, air creates motion, harmony, and equilibrium.
And finally, we have the second He, the final letter of the formula.
The final, He represents the earth element. But Barden clarifies that Earth isn't quite an element in the fluid, energetic way the other three are. Earth is the solidification, the physical cohesion of fire, water, and air.
It's the anchor.
It is the anchor. It gives concrete shape and material form to the other three forces. Earth is the manifestation of the four-pole magnet itself, electromagnetic in nature, which creates space, measure, weight, and time.
So Yod-He-Vah-He is literally a tetrapolar magnet. Yeah. It's a four-pole system that dictates how universal energy is generated, contained, balanced, and physically materialized.
Exactly.
And if the entire universe, the macrocosm, is built on this tetrapolar magnet, Barden argues that the human body, the microcosm, is the exact same blueprint.
As above, so below.
Right. This is where we get into what he calls occult anatomy. He maps the human body as a living, breathing, biological battery.
He maps it structurally and functionally, completely bypassing standard biology to look at the esoteric energetic flow. According to Hermetic tradition, the body is compartmentalized by these exact elements. The head corresponds to the fire principle.
Which tracks perfectly. I mean, the head is where active, electrical, expansive thought occurs. It's the spark.
Precisely. The abdomen corresponds to the water principle. This is the realm of the saps, the fluids, digestion, absorption, and secretion. It is the passive, contractive work of maintaining the organism.
And sitting right between the fire of the head and the water of the abdomen is the chest. The chest is the air principle, the mediator. It literally sits in the middle, managing the mechanical breathing that regulates both the head and the gut.
And finally, the flesh, the bones, the actual physical structure holding these three regions together is the earth principle, the cohesive materialization of the forces.
But he goes way deeper than just these broad regional zones. He maps out incredibly specific polarities.
Oh yeah, very specific.
He says that for a right-handed person, the right side of the body is active electric. The left side is passive magnetic. And the internal organs themselves have distinct polarities. Like, he claims the forepart of the head is electric, but the back of the head is magnetic. The inside of the eyes is magnetic, but the outside is neutral. It is mapped with the precision of an electrical engineer diagramming a motherboard.
We have to ask why he does this. Why is Barden mapping the body with such granular surgical precision?
Why?
It all ties back to the concept of the athanor. In historical alchemy, the athanor was the specialized furnace where the great work, the creation of the Philosopher's Stone, was performed.
Okay.
It had to be built to exact specifications to maintain a precise, unwavering heat. Barden is taking that historical concept and turning it inward. He is saying, you are the furnace.
Wow.
Your physical body is the living athanor, where the alchemical transmutation of your own soul happens. Health, in strict Hermetic terms, is nothing less than the perfect harmony and energetic balance of these elemental forces within your biological furnace.
I have to push back a little here because when we start talking about the body being a battery, and Barden using terms like electricity and magnetism flowing through the right and left hands, are we talking about actual measurable voltage?
That's a common question.
Like, if I master this Hermetic anatomy, can I theoretically charge my smartphone by gripping the charging cable really hard with my right hand?
It is a vital distinction to make, and it relies heavily on Barden's use of the law of analogy, the ancient maxim of as above, so below. When Barden says electrical fluid, he is explicitly not talking about the grossly material physical electricity running through your wall outlets or powering a smartphone.
Okay, good to know.
He is talking about the universal qualities of expansion, heat, and active force. These higher spiritual qualities behave analogously to physical electricity.
I see.
In Hermetic philosophy, physical electricity is just a dense, material, lower octave manifestation of this higher universal principle. The electrical fluid of the fire element in the body is the active, building up, expansive biological and spiritual force.
So it's more like the ultimate foundational vibe of electricity. It's the universal concept of positive and negative terminals balancing to generate power, which he refers to as the or animal magnetism.
Exactly. When there is disharmony in these elemental fluids, say your fire element is raging out of control and your water element is depleted, it manifests first as an invisible disturbance in the workshop of the body.
Makes sense.
And if it isn't corrected, that energetic disharmony eventually crystallizes into dense matter, resulting in what medical science calls a physical disease.
Right. So if our physical body is this highly sensitive alchemical furnace, a furnace doesn't run on empty. We need fuel.
We absolutely do.
Which fundamentally changes how we view a standard dinner plate.
Right.
How do we fuel this tetrapolar magnet on a daily basis? Because I'm going to guess that casually eating a processed burger while watching television isn't the optimal way to charge the Hermetic battery.
Not at all. This leads directly into Barden's rigid, deeply intentional instructions on daily intake. He focuses intensely on two primary sources of fuel: food and breath. To Barden, digestion is not merely a biological necessity of breaking down calories and macronutrients.
What is it then?
It is a literal alchemical combustion process.
Right, he compares it to throwing logs onto a fire to keep a steam engine running.
The food we eat naturally contains the gross material forms of the elements mingled together. By digesting it, the chemical breakdown preserves the elements in our body. Barden insists on a mixed, varied diet for a very specific reason. You have to fuel all four elements.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you restrict yourself to a completely one-sided diet, you inadvertently starve specific elemental forces within your athanor, creating immediate internal disharmony.
He says you can actually feel this disharmony manifesting through your everyday physical cravings, right?
Yes, you can.
He points out that if the fire element in your body is working excessively, you don't just feel physically hot. You feel an intense, undeniable yearning for movement, for activity, and you feel acutely thirsty.
Because the nature of fire is expansive and it actively consumes moisture. Conversely, if you have an excess of the air element, it manifests as sudden, sharp hunger.
Interesting.
And an oversaturation of the water element causes a physical feeling of coldness, lethargy, and actually increases bodily secretions.
So if fire makes you hyperactive and water makes you sluggish, I'd assume earth, being the heaviest element, just makes you want to crawl into bed and sleep for a week.
You'd think so, and it certainly does produce feelings of heaviness and tiredness. But interestingly, Barden points out that an excess of earth also spikes your productive and sexual instincts, because earth is the elemental force of generation, materialization, and physical creation.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the physical food fuels the material elements. But Barden introduces a practice he calls the conscious reception of food, or the Eucharistic mystery. And this is the moment where we start moving from just existing passively to practicing active magic.
Yes, this is a big transition.
He says it's not just about what is on your plate, but the precise mental state you are in while you consume it.
This is a foundational cornerstone of his step-by physical training. The technique is to mentally impregnate your food with a specific, highly concentrated desire before and while you eat it.
Let's play this out for the listener. Imagine you're sitting down to eat a sandwich. Normally, you're mindlessly scrolling on your phone, reading work emails, or watching a video. You're barely tasting it.
We all do it.
Yeah. But Barden says you must stop completely. You sit in absolute unbroken focus. You look at the food, and you visualize and firmly believe that this meal is pure, balancing, divine energy. You impregnate it with a specific wish. You think, with intense concentration, this food brings me perfect health, or this food gives me unshakable willpower.
The underlying mechanism here is profound, because the physical food contains the gross material elements. When you attach a conscious, concentrated thought to it, the chemical breakdown of the food in your stomach literally binds your mental intention to your physical cells.
That is wild.
It is. The elements carry your concentrated wish out of the digestive tract, directly into your bloodstream, and through the astral matrix, permanently into your soul.
You are literally eating your intentions. So if you eat while furious at your boss, you are chemically binding the energy of rage into your own cells.
You are feeding the negative, destructive aspect of the fire element directly into your bloodstream. If we look at modern holistic health and the growing research on the gut-brain axis, Barden anticipated this mind-gut connection decades ago.
He really did.
He recognized that the state of your mind while you digest physically alters how your body processes fuel, which in turn radically affects your temperament and spiritual progress.
So food is the solid fuel. But a fire needs oxygen to burn. He dedicates a huge portion of Step Right to the mystery of breathing.
Breathing is the invisible half of the fuel equation. From a hermetic standpoint, the gases we inhale correspond perfectly to the elements. Oxygen corresponds to the fire element. Nitrogen corresponds to the water element.
Okay.
Air itself is the mediating element, and carbon dioxide is the earth element holding the tension together.
The tetrapolar magnet is operating inside our lungs with every breath we take.
Normal, unconscious breathing only supplies the body with enough elemental substance to barely preserve biological life. But conscious breathing changes the game entirely. The atmospheric air we breathe also contains the akasa, the causal etheric principle.
The God particle of the Hermetic universe just floating right there in the living room.
Exactly. If you place a specific thought, an abstract idea, or an image into the air you are inhaling, that thought takes hold of the akasa principle suspended in the air. When you inhale, the electromagnetic fluid of the air, now highly charged with your specific idea, enters your lungs and then your bloodstream.
And from the physical bloodstream, it moves to the astral body and finally anchors into the immortal spirit.
The material parts of the elemental gases maintain the physical body, but the akasa serves as a bridge, carrying your conscious idea directly into your soul. This mechanism is exactly why Barden issues stern warnings against extreme yoga breathing exercises, or pranayama, done without proper esoteric guidance.
Right, because modern wellness culture often treats breath work like a fun, intense workout. people hyperventilate intentionally to feel a high.
Barden would view that as incredibly reckless. He warns that many people ruin their physical and nervous health by forcing pranayama. By mechanically forcing breath without understanding the elemental correspondences, they are forcefully shoving massive amounts of unbalanced elemental fluids into a nervous system that isn't structurally prepared to handle them.
Wow.
It leads to nervous breakdowns, chronic fatigue, and elemental sickness.
Knowing how to fuel the biological battery with conscious eating and conscious breathing is amazing theory. But, theory is totally useless without a practical engine manual. You can put premium, high-octane gas in a sports car, but if you don't know how to drive a manual transmission, you're going nowhere.
That's a great analogy.
And Barden provides this highly detailed driver's manual in what he calls Step I. And Step I is grueling. He demands strict, uncompromising daily habits before any actual esoteric work can occur.
He is adamant that body, soul, and spirit must be trained simultaneously. The three pillars must rise together. If you focus solely on intellectual or spiritual development and ignore the physical body, your biological vehicle will not possess the energetic capacity to handle the immense tension you will build later on.
It'll break.
The athanor will crack right under the pressure.
Let's look at the morning routine he prescribes for the material body. You wake up. The very first thing you do, before coffee, before checking your phone, is take a soft brush and vigorously dry brush your entire body until the skin turns faintly reddish.
We need to understand the hermetic mechanism behind this. The physiological goal is to open the pores so they can breathe freely. In hermetic anatomy, the skin is not just a protective wrapper, it is a vital secondary respiratory organ.
Okay.
It is intimately connected to the air element. By ensuring the skin can breathe properly, you drastically relieve the workload on the lungs and the kidneys, which correspond to the water element.
After you've brushed your skin red, you wash your whole body, or at least the upper half, with cold water, rubbing briskly with a rough towel until you're flushed and warm. He says lukewarm water is acceptable for sensitive people or in the dead of winter, but the goal is to shock the physical system awake, eradicate tiredness, and forcefully stimulate the flow of the elemental fluids.
Yes, it's about stimulation.
Right. And following the cold wash, you do daily morning gymnastics to keep the body elastic and the joints free of tension.
And then, as part of the morning hygiene, we arrive at a very specific, fascinating practice he calls the magic of water, or the magnetic eye bath.
This one requires some prep. You take water that was boiled the day before, maybe adding a mild herb like eyebright. You fill a basin. You plunge your face into the water, open your eyes underwater, and roll them around 7 times.
While underwater.
And while you were doing this, you were supposed to impregnate the water with a deeply concentrated wish to improve your physical vision and eventually awaken your astral clairvoyance.
What Barden is doing here is utilizing the fundamental inherent property of the water element. Water is contractive, passive, and deeply magnetic. It absorbs energy and intention better than almost any other substance.
Interesting.
By magnetizing the water with your focused will and directly exposing your optic nerves to it, you are physically and astrally strengthening the fire element's perceptive qualities within the head region. You are utilizing the physical substance of water to wash and clarify the astral senses.
It honestly sounds refreshing, if a bit intense, to force yourself to open your eyes in a bowl of cold water every single morning.
It definitely wakes you up.
Yeah, but all of that, the brushing, the cold water, the eye baths, that's just the physical asceticism.
Yeah.
The mental asceticism is where I think 99% of modern people would hit an absolute brick wall. It breaks mental training down into 4 distinct progressive stages of thought control.
And the rule is absolute. You cannot progress to stage 2 until you have completely mastered stage 1. There is no skipping ahead.
Stage 1 is observation. You sit in a comfortable chair, relax your body, close your eyes, and for 5 minutes, you just watch your thoughts. You act as a totally silent, detached observer to the rushing river of your own mind.
Just watching.
Just watching. You don't judge the thoughts, you don't get mad at yourself for having them, and you absolutely do not follow them down a rabbit hole. You just watch them pass by like cars on a highway. And, crucially, you cannot fall asleep. He instructs the practitioner to extend this by 1 minute every single day until they can do it for 10 uninterrupted minutes.
From a modern psychological perspective, this is essentially a rigorous form of mindfulness meditation, which we now know has profound neuroplastic effects on the brain.
Right.
You are actively separating your consciousness from your automatic thought generation machine. You are arriving at the vital realization that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts.
Once you nail the 10 minutes of observation, you move to stage 2, which is discipline. This is about actively, forcefully shutting off categories of thoughts. When you are at work, you must banish all thoughts of your home life. When you come home, you must ruthlessly shut off all thoughts of work. Whatever task you are doing, whether it's writing a report or washing the dishes, you do it with absolute, exclusive, singular focus.
He argues that this sharply hones the mind and vastly strengthens the memory. But more importantly for the magician, it stops the leakage of vital mental energy. If your mind is constantly divided, worrying about tomorrow while trying to accomplish a task today, your electrical fluid is scattered and weak.
Right? Then stage 3 is holding. You choose a single thought or idea. It can be anything. A visual image of a pencil, an abstract concept like justice, and you hold on to it with all your mental strength for 10 solid minutes, violently rejecting every single other thought that tries to intrude on the space.
This is building the sheer muscular concentration required to hold a complex intention in the akasa later on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you cannot hold a simple, static thought of a pencil in your mind for 10 minutes, how could you possibly expect to hold the complex, multidimensional visualization of universal healing energy required in later steps?
That makes perfect logical sense. But stage 4. Stage 4 is the one that really got me. Vacancy. This is what I mentioned at the very beginning of the deep dive. You must achieve total, utter mental emptiness. Absolute zero. No thoughts at all for 10 solid minutes without falling asleep.
It's incredibly difficult.
He actually recommends using a physical string of beads, moving one bead every single time a thought breaks your concentration so you can track your failures.
Why does he demand this extreme level of mental silence? Because the physical asceticism, the cold water shock, the rigorous brushing must be matched by an equal level of mental asceticism.
Right.
You cannot command the astral plane, you cannot command the spirits, and you certainly cannot command the raw elemental forces of the universe if you cannot even command your own attention span.
I was trying to think of an analogy for how difficult this is. Vacancy of mind is like trying to close every single browser tab in your brain, shutting down every background application, stopping every download, and just staring at a completely blank desktop screen. But the massive catch is the screensaver can never turn on.
Yes.
You can't let the computer go to sleep. You have to maintain absolute, high alert, waking awareness of the emptiness.
That is a perfect analogy. You are keeping the CPU running at maximum power, but processing exactly 0 tasks. It requires immense sustained willpower, which directly exercises and strengthens the fire principle within the mind.
If you manage this, if you can observe your thoughts, focus them exclusively, and silence them entirely, Barton says you will immediately realize something deeply uncomfortable. Once the noise is gone, you'll see how deeply flawed, biased, and chaotic your soul actually is. The silence reveals the dirt, which leads us to the most psychologically grueling exercise in the entire book, the black and white mirrors.
This constitutes step 3 of the magic psychic training, introspection. And it is the crucible in which the true magician is forged. Without this step, everything else is dangerous parlor tricks.
Barton instructs you to buy a notebook, a magic diary, that is strictly for your eyes only. And you have to sit down and ruthlessly, mercilessly record every single fault, weakness, passion, and ugly character trait you possess. He calls this the black mirror of the soul. Then you record every virtue, every good quality. That's the white mirror.
He uses the phrase that you must wash your soul perfectly clean, sweep all the dust out of it. You have to meticulously observe yourself in past situations. You have to note your reactions, your petty grievances, your hidden lusts, your moments of cowardice, your laziness.
Nothing left out.
Absolutely nothing can remain unrevealed or justified.
If you're listening right now, think about your absolute worst habit, the one flaw you hide from everyone, even your partner or your best friend. Barton is asking you to not only write it down in stark detail, but to dissect it. It's a brutal audit of your own ego. I feel like most of modern society is built entirely around avoiding doing exactly this.
We run from it constantly.
We have endless entertainment and distractions, specifically so we never have to look in the black mirror.
It is terrifying, and the modern aversion to introspection is precisely why so few achieve true mastery. But we have to understand why it is necessary. The subconscious mind, which Barton locates in the cerebellum, is the primary antagonist to our conscious willpower.
How so?
It is the repository of all our unresolved elemental imbalances. If you try to practice magic, which involves the accumulation and projection of massive amounts of elemental energy, without knowing your own imbalances, that accumulated energy will automatically follow the path of least resistance and feed your hidden faults.
It's like putting a 1,000 horsepower engine into a car with a bent, rusted chassis. As soon as you hit the gas to accelerate, the frame is going to violently tear itself apart.
Exactly. The energy amplifies whatever is already there. So Barden makes you categorize every single fault by the four elements.
Yeah.
You have to perform an esoteric diagnosis to figure out which element is causing which flaw.
He provides a diagnostic key for this. If you struggle with jealousy, hatred, vindictiveness, or sudden flashes of anger, you have an overactive fire element. If your faults are boasting, frivolity, squandering money, or gossiping, that is an unbalanced air element.
If you lean heavily toward laziness, apathy, indifference, or emotional frigidity, your water element is stagnant and overly contractive. And if you suffer from dullness, melancholy, or a profound lack of conscience and grounding, your earth element is dragging your energetic system down.
Then you grade them. It's not just a list, it's a spreadsheet. You divide these faults into 3 groups based on intensity. Group 1, the most intense faults that plague you all the time. Group 2, faults that occur under specific triggers. Group 3, minor, occasional faults.
And you repeat the exact same exhaustive process for your virtues in the white mirror. Courage and eagerness are manifestations of a healthy fire element. Diligence, joy, and cheerfulness belong to air. Modesty, compassion, and adaptability are water. Endurance, reliability, and groundedness are earth.
You are essentially mapping out your exact elemental temperament.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a bit of modern personality frameworks like Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram, but with a much more severe end goal. Barden isn't just trying to help you figure out your communication style or find the right career path. He requires you to literally neutralize the saboteur in your subconscious.
Because the subconscious is cunning. It uses time and space to sabotage your conscious desires. If you don't map these elemental imbalances meticulously, you cannot achieve what Barden calls the magic astral balance. He warns explicitly, if you don't sweep your own doorstep first, the unbalanced elements will destroy you. Higher magical progress is not just impossible without this balance, it is actively dangerous.
So if the Black Mirror acts as a diagnostic tool to fix the rusted chassis and balance the engine, what happens when you finally turn the key?
Right.
We've prepped the physical body, we've silenced the mind, we've balanced the elemental soul, we have built this massive reservoir of balanced energy. Where does Barden tell us to direct it first?
This is where we transition into step 2 and step 3 of the physical training. We move from preparation to application. Having learned conscious breathing through the lungs in step 3, Barden now introduces conscious pore breathing.
He tells you to imagine your physical body as a completely dry sponge. When you inhale, you aren't just pulling air through your nose or mouth. You are visualizing and physically feeling every single pore on your skin greedily sucking up vital power from the surrounding universe.
We spoke earlier about the skin being a secondary respiratory organ. By visualizing the pores opening and actively drawing in energy, you are engaging the etheric body's innate ability to absorb ambient vital force.
Oh.
You draw this vital force into the body with the inhale, and when you exhale, you imagine secreting weakness, failure, or physical illness out through the pores into the universe where it is neutralized.
But then he introduces the concept of accumulation. And this sounds both incredibly powerful and slightly terrifying.
The accumulation of vital power is the hallmark of the true magician.
He says you inhale the vital power through the lungs and the pores, but you do not exhale it. When you breathe out physically, you use your mental willpower to hold the energy inside your body. You build pressure. You keep packing it in, breath after breath after breath.
He compares it to pumping air into a fully inflated tire or building pressure inside a sealed steam engine. You have to physically feel the pressure of the vital force inside you.
Look, it's building up.
Exactly. It becomes so dense that it begins radiating outward, like intense heat emanating from a cast iron radiator. You accumulate so much power that your aura shines like a miniature sun, extending yards beyond your physical body.
And he offers specific, highly practical guidance for applying this accumulated pressure to everyday health. For instance, he discusses biomagnetism.
Mm-hmm.
You can impregnate a room with this vital force. You accumulate the energy within yourself, project it outward into the physical space of a room, and impregnate it with the specific desire that anyone who sits in this room will feel profound peace and healing.
And crucially, you use your willpower to command that energy to constantly renew itself. So simply sitting in your living room or your home office becomes a passive, continuous healing treatment for you and anyone who enters.
But the most fascinating application he details is how a Barden-trained magician treats sick people compared to a standard energy healer or magnetizer. Barden draws a very sharp, very critical distinction here.
It is a vital distinction for anyone interested in energetic healing. A standard magnetizer uses their own personal vital force. They project their own biological energy into the patient. If the magnetizer doesn't have a massive surplus of energy to begin with, or if they treat too many severely ill people in a row, they dramatically drain their own life force.
That sounds dangerous.
It is. Barden notes that he has seen well-intentioned magnetizers suffer complete nervous breakdowns, rapid aging, and severe heart disease because they literally gave their own life away.
It's exactly like someone trying to give a blood transfusion directly from their own arm to save a patient. Eventually, if you keep giving, you run out of blood and you collapse.
Precisely. But a true, trained magician operates on a completely different mechanical level. The magician accumulates universal vital power, drawing it from the endless, inexhaustible ocean of the akasa and channels it directly into the patient's astral matrix. The magician is merely a conduit. They are a hose connected to an infinite well.
To stick with the medical analogy, the magician isn't giving their own blood. They are simply hooking the patient up to an infinite, universal 5E trip. The magician's own energy reserves remain completely untouched.
Barton describes the specific technique: building a radiant aura of accumulated vital force, perhaps 10 yards wide, compressing it, pressing it directly into the sick patient's pores, and using concentrated willpower to command the energy to stay there and perform its healing work.
And here is where Barton introduces the law of time and space in healing. The magician must explicitly order the radiant energy to remain in the patient and renew itself hour by hour, day by day, until the patient is completely physically healed. You don't just dump the energy on them and walk away. You program the energy with a strict time release mechanism.
This is because energy is fluid. If you don't anchor it, the energy will naturally dissipate back into the universe, or the patient's weakened astral matrix won't be able to hold on to it. By fixing the parameters of time and space, commanding it to stay strictly within the perimeter of the patient's physical body, and renew itself continuously from the universal supply, the magician achieves what medical science might view as an inexplicable, spontaneous remission.
But Barton gives a massive, bolded warning here for anyone attempting accumulation. When you are accumulating the elements or universal vital power, you must never accumulate them directly in the brain or the heart.
This is a crucial safety protocol. The brain and the heart are the most delicate, highly sensitive physical organs in the body. They correspond directly to the highest mental and emotional functions of the soul. Accumulating highly condensed, pressurized elemental energy directly into those organs without decades of mastery and perfect elemental balance can cause severe, irreversible physical damage.
Like what?
He warns of strokes, heart attacks, or profound psychiatric breaks. The energy must be accumulated in the whole body evenly or directed specifically to the hands and feet for external projection.
So healing a headache by projecting energy through your hands or vitalizing your bedroom so you wake up refreshed, that is incredible practical magic.
Yeah.
But it's just the beginning of the curriculum. What happens when the learner masters these fluids, perfectly balances their own soul, and decides they want to step off the physical plane entirely? That brings us to the truly esoteric realms, the steps to spiritual development beyond the first level.
This is where Barton's system moves from exceptional, rigorous self-improvement into the realm of true high magic. Having mastered the elements within the microcosm of the body, the magician learns to project their consciousness outward into the macrocosm.
Let's trace this progression because the exercises build on each other beautifully. In step 3, after you've mastered holding a single thought, you move to multisensory concentration exercises. You don't just visualize a clock in your mind. You have to visually see the brass pendulum swinging. You have to auditorily hear the precise tick-tock, and you have to physically feel the cold metal of the clock face, all simultaneously in your imagination.
This exercise is designed to build the multidimensional density of your mental matrix. You are training your mind to process sight, sound, and touch entirely independent of your physical sensory organs. You are preparing the consciousness to exist and operate outside the biological shell.
Which leads directly to steps the V&V, the transplantation of consciousness. This concept completely blew my mind. Barton tells you to take an object, like a solid wooden cube or a clock. You stare at it, you memorize it, then you close your eyes and you transfer your consciousness into the absolute center of that object. You have to feel your entire sense of self become as small as a poppy seed. You have to feel the grain of the wood surrounding you.
You are learning to intentionally dislocate your point of perception. We are all deeply anchored to the idea that we exist right behind our eyes, inside our skulls. Barden is teaching the practitioner to sever that biological anchor.
That's wild.
Once you can successfully transfer your consciousness into an inanimate object, you turn the technique inward on your own body. You transplant your consciousness into the depth point, the solar plexus, the center of gravity of the human body. You meditate on the fact that you are a tiny atom of akasa, looking out at the sprawling universe of your own internal organs and energetic pathways.
Wait, I have to pause here. Does perception literally leave the skull? Is this just incredibly heavy, immersive visualization? Or is Barden claiming that the actual locus of human awareness physically moves to the solar plexus?
According to Barden, it is not merely visualization. The visualization is the vehicle, but the destination is literal. You are actively moving the etheric focal point of your consciousness. The solar plexus is the bridge to the akasa. When you inhabit the depth point, you affirm, I am the center of my body. I am the determining power therein.
This sounds like the gateway to a genuine magical trance.
It is the exact preliminary stage to achieving cosmic consciousness. You are no longer identifying as a body that has a spirit. You are identifying as a spirit that happens to be operating a body.
And once you realize you aren't bound to the skull, we reach step 8. Mental wandering. He introduces the mirror exercise. You sit in a chair in front of a large mirror. You stare at your reflection. You memorize your own posture, your face, the room behind you. Then you close your eyes and you forcefully transfer your consciousness into the reflection in the mirror. You open your astral eyes and you look back out of the mirror at your own physical body sitting motionless in the chair.
And once the magician can sustain that dual awareness, existing in the reflection while observing the physical shell, they are free to leave the mirror entirely.
You just walk away?
Yeah, you walk around the room in your mental body, you walk through the physical door, you visit a neighbor's house to observe them. Eventually, as the skill deepens, you visit other continents and eventually other spheres of existence beyond the physical plane.
This sounds like the ultimate freedom. But I have to ask, why is the training structured in this exact rigid order? Why must a practitioner endure the brutal self-introspection of the black mirror in step first, before they are allowed to attempt leaving their body in step 8? If I just want to mentally wander, why do I have to map out my minor personality flaws first?
Because the astral plane is not empty, benign space. It is densely populated. It contains the deceased, yes, but it also contains elemental beings, elementaries, and larvae.
Okay, the larvae.
Yeah.
I promised we would get to this because it is one of the most unsettling concepts in the book.
If you attempt to wander the astral plane or project massive amounts of energy without having perfectly balanced your elements and cleared your black mirror, your own unresolved passions will unconsciously create parasitic entities in the lower astral plane.
The larvae.
These are the larvae. They are semi-conscious forms that thrive purely on the passions of the animal world.
So let's say I have an unresolved, intense passion. Let's say it's a gambling addiction or a deep, seething, obsessive hatred for a former business partner. Are you saying I am actually creating a literal, energetic parasite in the astral realm?
Yes. Every time you indulge in that intense, unbalanced passion, you expel elemental energy. In the astral plane, that energy coalesces into a larva. And because it is born of your energy, its instinct for self-preservation will drive it to feed on the very passion that created it.
Oh my God.
It will attach itself to your astral matrix. It will subtly, continuously stimulate your mind to give in to that passion, to feel that hatred, to crave that gamble, because when you feel it, you emit the exact energetic frequency the larva needs to survive.
That is horrifying. It's an energetic leech that you create yourself, which then manipulates you into feeding it.
It is the esoteric mechanics of addiction and obsession. Barden warns that skipping the foundational steps and trying to access the astral plane with an impure, unbalanced soul leads inevitably to morbid visions, terrifying hallucinations, and ultimate spiritual ruin. You will step onto the astral plane and literally be devoured by the manifestations of your own projected flaws. This is precisely why the grueling work of the Black Mirror is non-negotiable. You must eliminate the food source before you open the door.
But if you are balanced, if you have swept the doorstep and achieved equilibrium, Barden says you can consciously create what he calls elementaries in step Besson. You can intentionally create a being out of the elemental fluids, name it, give it a specific form, and command it to execute complex tasks for you in the physical or astral world.
Conscious creation of elementaries is the mastered, intentional, highly disciplined version of larva creation. Instead of an unconscious parasitic leech born of wild passion, you create a dedicated, obedient servant born of pure will and akasa. But again, Barden insists this is only permissible and safe for the adept who has completely flawlessly mastered themselves.
And what is the ultimate goal of all of this? Why build the servants? Why wander the plains? Why accumulate the energy? In Steps 9x, in the final steps of the first book, Barden reveals the summit. You must impregnate your astral body with the 4 fundamental divine qualities.
Omnipotence corresponding to fire, omniscience corresponding to air, immortality corresponding to water, and omnipresence corresponding to earth.
You meditate on these absolute concepts until you achieve actual conscious communication and union with the personal Godhead. Barden says you don't just pray to God as an external figure, you fuse your consciousness with the divine virtues until you experience the ancient realization of Tat Twam Asi, that thou art. You become the conscious living conduit for the divine on earth.
In the Hermetic tradition, it represents the complete realization of the first tarot card, the Magician. The initiate becomes the absolute master of the elements, standing firmly between heaven and earth, executing the will of divine providence with perfect clarity and balance.
Let's take a collective breath here. We have covered an immense, staggering amount of ground today. We started with the humble instructions of washing our faces with cold water and observing our breathing. We moved into the terrifying vulnerability of cataloging our deepest, darkest flaws in a secret diary to balance the tetrapolar magnet. We learned the mechanics of accumulating universal energy like a living battery, projecting it to heal the sick without draining ourselves. And finally, we explored the mechanisms of separating the spirit from the physical shell to wander the universe and unite with the divine forces of creation.
It is a remarkable, exhausting, and beautiful journey. It serves as a profound reminder that true historic magic has absolutely nothing to do with fantasy or escapism. It is essentially the ultimate rigorous discipline of radical self-awareness and self-mastery.
Before we wrap up, I know you always have a final thought for us to mull over, something that connects this dense, uncompromising 1956 text to our very chaotic lives right now.
I've been thinking heavily about Barden's concept of akasa and the creation of larvae, those parasitic thought forms fed by our unrestrained, unconscious passions. Let's connect this esoteric mechanic to the bigger picture of our modern era.
Okay.
We live in an age characterized by endless viral digital outrage. Social media algorithms are literally mechanically designed by engineers to harvest human emotion. They are optimized specifically to provoke anger, jealousy, tribalism, and fear.
They're designed to trigger the fire and air elements and push them completely out of control to maximize engagement.
Precisely. If we view this through Barden's lens, we have to ask ourselves a very disturbing question. Are we unconsciously polluting the Akasa principle on a mass global scale? Are our digital networks, our endless timelines and comment sections currently swarming with the exact kind of larva Barden warned about?
Wow.
Are there massive artificial energetic entities feeding on our collective, unrestrained elemental passions every single time a wave of viral outrage sweeps the internet?
Whoa. That is a terrifyingly coherent theory. The algorithm is the larva. It feeds on the anger, and it constantly shows you things to make you angrier so it doesn't starve.
If that is true, then Barden's step-by mental hygiene, the ability to sit in a quiet chair and ruthlessly observe, filter, and control your own thoughts, isn't just an obscure occult practice for a few wannabe magicians in the 1950s. It is a vital, urgent survival skill for the modern age. If you cannot control your own mind, something else is already eagerly feeding on it.
That is a chilling but ultimately incredibly empowering thought. You have to sweep your own doorstep, you have to balance your own elements, or the algorithm will bring the dirt right inside your mind. To you, the learner, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Your challenge for today is simple but profound. Try to observe your thoughts. Sit still. Watch the river flow. And when the noise gets too loud, remember that you have the inherent power to close those mental tabs. Until next time, keep that internal furnace burning bright and keep the machine of your mind in perfect working order.